Good morning, good evening, whatever time of day you're listening to this. My name is Yael Kaisman, and I'd like to share with you some ideas about these obviously challenging days, weeks, and we don't know how long. Whenever there are challenges, there are also opportunities. And certainly on one end of the continuum, there have been incredible opportunities for many people. People have discovered that they can make Pesach, and they thought they couldn't. And they can even have a beautiful Seder. And even older people who stayed home for the Seder discovered a special kind of energy that they were able to partake of at their Seder. Although they missed their grandchildren, it was a very special energy in its own right. Their children, a certain amount of them, who never particularly thrive in school, they are doing great. And there are siblings who've never played together who actually are learning to do that. And there are parents who are enjoying the time with their children in a different kind of way. Mothers who maybe don't have to work are enjoying that time. And fathers who may be spending time with their children in a whole new experience. And the list can go on. But today, I'm going to speak to you about the other end of the continuum that this challenging situation has given us. People who are suffering tremendous, serious, heartbreaking losses. People who are living with illness. People are living with tremendous anxiety about their loved ones and the potential of them getting ill. And although not quite on the same level of the things that we're talking about, certainly very serious, people who are living with tremendous financial stress and terror that their losses will not be able to be compensated for, and it could leave them in a very vulnerable position. And these situations are so overwhelming. They are very, very overwhelming. And there are people who, for whatever reason, give it their nature, give it their inclination, give it their upbringing, are able to relatively deal with some of this with a certain amount of equanimity and, of course, pain and process, but not the same level of convulsing energy that some people have to deal with. For some people, this throws us, and it makes so much sense that it throws us into a place of tremendous emotional angst, spiritual angst, even if it's not about an immediate member of the family. And yet, knowing that so much pain is taking place in Klal Yisrael and so much terror is taking place in the world, the amount of human suffering is so difficult that for many people it just really does something very, very difficult to them. And in those situations, people are we are desperate, if we feel that way, to get some words of understanding of what is going on. We know HaKadosh Baruch Hu is good. We know He's kind. We can look at so many pieces of evidence of that. We can look at our own existence, certainly before we were sick, or even while we're sick, the way the body works, our ability to see, our ability to hear, if we're so blessed with those. Just looking at a baby, it just does something to us. The wonders, mipi olalim v'yonkim yisada oz, HaKadosh Baruch Hu from the mouth of babes, from the ability, even the whole process of that mothers have milk for the babies, and children's delightful, mirthful sounds just does something to us and reminds us of the beauty of Hashem's world, aside from the complexity of nature in so many ways. And we know that He is so good. And we know in theory that He remains the same good God, although acting and showing the midah, the attribute of justice and din. We know that sometimes that's necessary. We've known it personally in our own dealings with people, that justice is necessary for the sake of kindness. But at times, this just does something to us that is so painful. As somebody said to me, they said, I wouldn't do this to my worst enemy. I don't know we're not talking Nazis. We're talking about our personal people we're angry at. We wouldn't do it to so many people. We wouldn't do this. And yet, HaKadosh Baruch Hu in his kindness is doing it. And I know the technical answers in my brain, but what do I do with the feelings that I get? The feelings are so difficult to deal with. And I want to share with you something that as I went through Pesach like everybody, Me'evel Liyom Tov, those words rung very true for anyone who had losses or felt the losses of Klal Yisrael before Yom Tov, or the terror going into Yom Tov of the people who are still struggling in any kind of way. Me'evel Liyom Tov we felt. And we tried to take from the Yom Tov the energy of the Yom Tov, the Geula, the Go'al Yisrael. I have vivid memories of my father-in-law, Alav Hashalom, having come out of the camps, coming out of the situations in which he was in during World War II, and saying the bracha, Asher Go'alanu v'Go'al Avosenu, saying that bracha, that he redeemed us and our fathers even as he came out of the war with no close relatives. And he would look at the Seder, at his children, and not yet his grandchildren, but eventually then his grandchildren. And now Baruch Hashem, his great-grandchildren. And that bracha of Asher Ga'alanu, I was awed. How was he saying it? Hashem redeemed us? You went through so much and you had so little at the end. But that abiding understanding that Ga'alanu can mean many things, that redemption, it takes place over a big picture that Hashem has. And ultimately, when he was saying it with the pain of the past, at that point he was looking at the joy of the future. But that carried me in many ways through Pesach, the beginning of Pesach. And then I got to the 7th day of Pesach. And I was thinking about it so much and learning about it. And I realized so much of what we need to hear and know about is what took place between the first day of Pesach and the second days of Pesach, because that really addresses so much of the pain and suffering that goes on for us intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually during a time of pain when we're not sitting well with it. What happened? The first days of Pesach, Klal Yisrael did incredible things. They were willing to go ahead and kill a lamb that was the idol of the Egyptians. They were willing to do that at great risk, but they felt that commitment to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They had watched miracles. They knew Hashem's power. They knew it from before, from their tradition, from what Masorah had been passed on, and they were able to do that. They were able to do that. They were able to rise to that level of emunah, even as the Makas Bachoros was going on around them, and all the Makos were. And they believed it, and they were excited to become part of this new world order that HaKadosh Baruch Hu presented to them. You are going to be my Am HaNivchar. You are going to be my chosen people, chosen to be collaborators with me in order to go ahead and create an understanding of who I am, so people can live with that connection to God and become constantly become the most that they can be in a relationship with God, and create themselves and the world with that thinking, instead of being stuck in the narrow straits of Mitzrayim, where people, pygmies' minds, limited everything, because it wasn't an understanding that people's greatness is because they have the divine spirit and they can express godliness. They don't just serve the pagan gods, but they can express God in their very actions, in their thoughts, in their words, and that was very exciting. But yet, despite that tremendous excitement, what do we see happens between the first day of Pesach, going out with all that fear and the commitment? Fear and commitment. There was still fear of Mitzrayim, and there was a lot of pain. I was feeling an identification with that pain. They lost 4/5 of their beloved ones. Baruch Hashem, we didn't, and it should never get anywhere close to such numbers. 4/5 they left. They had been drained. A 4/5 they were coming out chamushim. 1/5 of the people were walking out. So much loss, but yet there was that excitement of emunah and the excitement of becoming the Am HaNivchar. But there was pain. There was a lot of pain. And along with it, when you look into the Mefarshim, there was fear. How do we know the Mitzrayim won't follow us? We're leaving. God is so great. But Mitzrayim are scary too. God is so powerful. But the Mitzrayim have enslaved us, and they have their power. And God is greater than the Mitzrayim. But somehow, there is still fear of other sources. And as they go through, and Hashem is not even taking them a certain way because he's afraid they'll quickly run back. And he takes them, and the Mitzrayim overtake them. And there are groups that are afraid, and groups that are davening, groups that are turning to Hashem, knowing that he's the answer. And yet, what happens? Something amazing happens. They go into the Yam Suf, and the Mitzrayim are in back, and they're not even completely consoled until they see the Mitzrayim dead on the side. And what does it say? Vayaminu b'Hashem u'v'Moshe avdo. The Mitzrayim are gone. The source of their fear is gone. Now, we can literally now say what was true before, but we weren't up to saying it. We can say, Hashem yimloch li'olam va'ed. Hashem is indeed the absolute king. He's the absolute reality. Nothing else has power. He allows things to have power, but he's the power. He allows things to happen through things that can be perceived as power, but they have no power. Ein od milvado. They saw that so clearly. They understood a picture. So why, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves us so much, why all the pain? The children who died in the Nile, the children who got put in as bricks, the most painful realities, all those. Why all those? And at that moment, at Yam Suf, they were given not only the demise of their enemy, but they were given the gift of insight, of that light that's going to be apparent in the future. They saw, they pointed, they had a vision of Nevuah that was so all-encompassing that all the pieces that we theoretically know fit together, they actually had a vision in which they fit together. And they were able to sing that kind of joy on that level. Oz Yashir, they were able to sing because all the notes fit together. All the dots could be pieced together. Different Mitzrayim were punished differently. Different people went through different things for different reasons. And it was all clear. At that point, they were able to say, Vayaminu b'Hashem u'v'Moshe avdo. So it's no wonder that we have a hard time. We obviously are in a better position because what can we do? We can hang on their process. They had to live through the process for the very first time. We can hang on their process in some kind of way, knowing that our forefathers went through that process. And they doubted. They were worried. Different levels of doubt. And then they had clarity. And even that clarity took a while to integrate. They had 40 years in the desert. It's hard. The head keeps thinking that it has to understand without the clarity. And the emotions, the pain just sometimes washes over us so badly that pain pushes away the emotions that we want to feel of just being cuddled in Hashem's arms, kegamul alei imo. We want to feel like that little child, trusting its mother, knowing that the mother would never harm. And again, our minds tell us Hashem would never harm us. But that process, going through it and holding on, is sometimes very, very difficult. We have their past. We have the reality of our Torah HaKadosha that predicts things, that has such depth, that we connect to, that see the wisdom, that makes us trust Hashem because of its wisdom and because of its incredible predictions in history and of the survival of the Jewish people against all imaginable odds, so much so that, as Rav Hirsch says, Yitzchak, the first Jewish child born, Yitzchak, the name laughter, it's almost laughable. But sometimes that laugh is so painful in trying to survive. And we're looking forward to the time when Oz Yemalei Schok Pinu, our mouths will be filled with a joy, not a laughability, and not with a bottom line fear. The absurdity of our surviving amidst pain will actually again see the pieces. Because that Oz Yashir that they sang, Yashir, we will sing it again. And it's so interesting because that concept of Hashem Yimloch Li'olam Va'ed, where nothing else has power, the virus doesn't have power, the doctors ultimately don't have power, they're all shlichim for whatever has to go through. The hospital that we think didn't take care, they're all shlichim. Even though we advocate and do our hishtadlus and do our attempts to do what we can, ultimately when we were powerless to do things, we know that it was completely Hashem running the show. Even with our attempts to do things, he just uses different means at different times. But we know that Hashem Yimloch Le'olam Va'ed is a hard place to get to. And it's interesting, if you look in Ezra's, at the end, right before Shemon Esrei, the Hashem Yimloch always comes after Kriyas Yamsuf, when they had clarity. That's when we can scream it. It's the same thing in Ma'ariv Tefillah. Hashem Yimloch Li'olam Va'ed wasn't at Yitzias Mitzrayim. We didn't have the clarity yet. That's when we had the clarity after that. And in a certain way, we go through this process all the time. When we say Shema, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, it seems like a certain clarity. But it's almost that we are acknowledging that we believe all that. But it's really beyond the ken of our understanding. What it means that God is one, the only one, the Echad, no parts. It is so beyond the God who exists before existence. Our mind can't even go there. We know about it. But you notice that we could say out loud because we almost can't even take the responsibility to actually understand it. It's not possible for us to understand it. So we can kind of maintain our pledge to Hashem, the Ol Malchus Shamayim, accepting it on a level that we don't completely understand. But when we say Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuso Li'olam Va'ed, there are many reasons we say it quietly. One reason I once heard from Rabbi Yitzchak Kerzner, Zatzal, was that there we're talking about how God reveals himself. In in Shema Yisrael, we're talking about his essence. His essence we can't completely understand, although we can be committed to it. Expressing how he expresses himself in this world and be able to, blessed is the name of the one whose glorious kingdom is forever. We express it. That's in this world, not the world and beyond and even before. That's the Malchus, where he expresses himself in this place that's relatively limited for God. Very, very limited for God. But he expresses himself, and here we're supposed to try to find him. Sometimes I think it's always like living in this world of Helem, of hiddenness. It's instead of where's Waldo, where's God? We're supposed to find him everywhere, and that's hard for us. And that's why we say it quietly, because we're not always up to doing that. Sometimes our mind and heart gets in the way. Our mind, that very strong spirit, that thinks we're in charge, we're supposed to figure it out, even though we know how much we don't understand. How much we don't understand about science, and we don't understand about other people, and we don't even understand about ourselves. But we have that but our minds, we want to be able to understand it. And emotionally, we want us to be at peace. And we thrash through. And we want to ultimately be able to go ahead and do what really intellectually makes sense, that if God is so much bigger, we want to get to that place of humility, to acknowledge that intellectually and emotionally we're not going to be able to completely grasp the actions of a God that we can't even understand exists outside of time and space. My mind can't even go there. How am I going to understand it? That even makes sense intellectually. But there's a certain spirit that I want to understand it. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I understand that you want to understand it. But sometimes he tells us the process of humility that we need to go through creates such an incredible connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu of trust and faith. And we see that written all over the place. In Tehillim, the Mesilas Yesharim discusses that sometimes to deal with those emotions, we need to read stories of the great. And we need to go ahead and really find, perhaps, really get connected to Tehillim. I can't just say Tehillim without understanding. Other people can, and that's great. It's almost like the cosmic power of the words go in. But finding words that speak to us. In Perek Yud Gimel, Ad Ona, to how much longer? Tishkacheni netzach. Sometimes I feel like you're forgetting me forever, that feeling of hopelessness. Ha'ira einai, give me a ray of hope. Ben ishan hamavis. Ben, because I feel otherwise that I cannot survive. Vani bachastecha vatachti. But ultimately, I want to, maybe through tefillos, when I daven to bitachon, by davening v'simcha l'chol habotchim b'shimcha be'emes v'simcha l'keinu imahem, and other places in davening, I want that bitachon so desperately. I can get to this point. Ha'ira einai peni shana maves va'ani bechastecha vatachti yogel libi bishu asi. And ultimately, I will be able to have that gila, and I too hope to be able to sing that song of joy where the dots, I trust they'll be connected, and ultimately when I actually see that they will be connected.
Hi, my name is Zahava Farbman, and I am the Associate Director of Lifeline's Crisis Intervention, Trauma, and Bereavement Department. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Everybody is suffering now. Everybody is suffering. There is nobody that is not spared. Whether it is simply, in quotes, simply, being in isolation and quarantine for an extended amount of time. People who are used to working full-time and are now home with children, all types of children, all types of needs, trying to create schedules and routines, behavioral issues, marriage issues, financial losses. So many people are feeling financial losses, financial stresses, illness. How many people, Hashem Yirachem, are experiencing illness for themselves, their family members, their loved ones, and Hashem Yirachem, how many deaths, how many losses that we, our community, Klal Yisrael, are experiencing. Nobody should be feeling guilt about having a hard time. Everybody is experiencing a hard time on one level or another. What we are all experiencing is trauma. Trauma. Everybody is experiencing trauma. Trauma is a situation that overwhelms us, for which we have no personal history or reference point with which to make it understandable. What we are dealing with now, what is happening all around us, is catastrophic trauma. This catastrophic trauma has an overwhelming component, a fact that virtually none of us has a reference in our minds, in our memories, in our lifetime, in our history that guides us how to behave, how to feel. Even those we normally go to for hadracha, for advice, for etzas, our parents, our rabbanim, our Rosh Yeshiva, they too are experiencing this crisis and this trauma. It is catastrophic because it is constant. It is catastrophic because there are tragic losses and they keep happening. It is catastrophic because we are dealing with the unknown and the rampant uncertainty in so many of us. We don't know where we are headed to. Wherever you turn, there is trauma around us. We have no personal time for refrain. It is constant. Illness and losses keep happening. Although we are at a place of what we call the new normal, we are still in the unknown. We see no way of navigation of our emotions, thoughts, and feelings, both in adults and children. This has definitely affected our thinking ability. We cannot focus, and we don't know to understand what is happening. We feel a heaviness. There is a heavy load that we seem to be carrying around constantly. Our physical well-being has been affected, and our spiritual being as well. Of course, our emotional responses have been impacted as well. We feel lost. One of the most important things I could tell you is that there is no right way and no wrong way to feel, think, cope, or react to any crisis, trauma, or tragedy. Certainly not one of this magnitude. Viktor Frankl was a famous psychiatrist. He himself lived through Auschwitz, and he coined the phrase that an abnormal reaction to an abnormal situation is totally normal, which means anything goes. It is vital that we accept, for the most part, that all or some of our reactions might seem uncomfortable, but most are totally normal. What we are experiencing, the external changes around us, are abnormal. Our mind, our heart, and our spirit is reacting to these upheavals. We need to validate for ourselves, our spouses, and our children that this is hard. Any reaction to an abnormal situation is normal. So when we hear the different types of reactions that we may have, let us realize the situation, the matzav that we are in now, and clarify for ourselves for our being lost. Every single person needs to be given the permission, the opportunity, the space to experience his or her experience in his own way. Every person has their own personality, their own emotional makeup, their own baggage of stuff that they're going through or been through in their life. And of course, their own personal pain and how they are experiencing their experience of the coronavirus. The Torah itself validates in several places that we have permission to go through experiences exactly as we need to. One of those places is the story of Yosef when he's thrown into the pit. Tragedy, right? In the Pesukim that follow, there are 5 different family members that react in 5 different ways. Reuven, one of his brothers, tore his garment, which is an outward sign of mourning. Binyamin, his younger brother, lived in the past and named each of his son. If you look at Rashi and Miketz, each of his son he named with an attribute of Yosef's. Yehuda, he held it all in. We always say, don't hold those feelings in or they're going to grow and grow and grow and burst like a volcano, which happened with Yehuda at the next episode of his life with Tamar. Yaakov, we know, Yaakov Avinu could not come to himself for 22 years until he knew that his son was alive, and he lost his Ruach HaKodesh during that time. He could not find comfort. And Yosef took his challenges, of which there were so many, and used them to propel himself forward until he became Sheni Lamelech to Paro. And as a parent, we should know that he was also able to empower his sons Menashe and Ephraim. And even though they grew up in Mitzrayim, they remained good yeshiva boys. And in fact, they were given chelek in Eretz Yisrael, even though they were not of the original 12 Shvatim. 5 different family members reacting in 5 different ways. And nowhere in the Torah does it say that one was right and one was wrong. We can also say from this story that Yosef's entire family was going to get through this tragedy together, but each brother had to go through it in his own way. So too, in our nisayon, in our situation today, each of our families will, be'ezras Hashem, get through this nisayon together. But each individual family member has to be validated, has to be given permission and space to do it in the way that he needs to do it. In addition, we are each members of a community. We are members of a larger klal, and we experience our own pain, and we experience the pain while identifying with a larger pain. We are always separate and yet together. What are the important feelings that we do need to validate in ourselves and in our family members? We understand that in such circumstances, we may feel as if we don't know what's happening. We may feel sad, and we may feel confused. We may feel fear, and we may feel anger. We may feel anxiety, and we may feel heaviness, short-temperedness. We may feel that we just don't recognize ourselves. To understand this better, we have developed an acronym, SCABS. This encompasses all of the emotions and the reactions that we may have. SCABS represents the way in which the emotions can be manifested, and yet when we are mindful of them, we can help ourselves heal, empower ourselves, and strengthen resiliency. S is somatic. It is important to pay attention to the way we are feeling physically. Headaches, nauseous, changes in our appetite, sleeping more, sleeping less. And on the other hand, we should be mindful of our breathing. We can pay attention to our eating, exercise properly. We can even initiate breathing exercises. We need to be mindful to the way we are feeling physically. C is cognitive, our thoughts and our perceptions. We may be very mindful to our thoughts and our perceptions for the negative and the positive. Be very self-aware. It definitely has a very important impact one way or the other. A is affect, our facial expression, our body language, something we want to be very cautious of in this time. What mood do we want to create in our home? One of fear, anxiety, stress, sadness, or one of calm, comfort, menucha, happiness? Our facial expression and our body language says so much more than the words that we actually speak. B is behavioral, crying, acting out, temper tantrums, maladaptive behavior, as opposed to perhaps putting on happy music and dancing in our home, channeling our emotions, our passions, our feelings into positive actions. S is spiritual. God forbid, chas v'shalom, our relationship with Hashem should be affected negatively. We now have all this time alone with Hashem. We can focus on communicating better, connecting with Him better. In Hebrew, the word for isolation is bidud, which the gematria is 26, the same gematria as Hashem. We have this time alone with Hashem. Let's focus on improving our relationship with Hashem. So what the story with Yosef and his brothers is showing us is that we have permission to feel this way, and that any reaction in an abnormal situation is normal, especially in a catastrophic situation is validated. And if we take this acronym for SCABS and apply it and really know that every emotion, every reaction is validated, but being mindful to the way that it's manifested and reacted, we can really help ourselves and our children heal and become more resilient. I would love to tell you that I have the magic wand to take away all of the pain that I am seeing around me. But what I've experienced in this unique position that Hashem has put me in this world, is that we need to go through the pain. It is vital and essential to go through the pain, not around it, not on top of it, and not underneath it. We need to be present with our emotions that we are feeling now. And honestly, it's okay not to be okay. It's okay not to be okay. And we need to validate that for ourselves, our spouses, and our children. Dr. Tal Ben-Shachar is a big psychologist in Israel who focuses on trauma. And he speaks a lot about the fact that it is crucial to experience the full range of emotions. He says that all of our emotions flow through one pipeline. And if you block the room for one, then you won't have room for others. Meaning, it's important to feel fear, sadness, anger, confusion. Because in that way, you will also have room for gratitude, joy, and happiness, which are feelings that are essential for now. Can you imagine going through this nisayon and not having moments of gratitude and joy? Yes, I am home in isolation, but thank you, Hashem, I'm home with my family. I appreciate so much more my health. Thank you, Hashem, it's a sunny day outside. I can go and just get some fresh air and take a walk. When we speak about expressing emotions, we might find for some that it's possible to focus on them right now, to be mindful of them right now, and to really, be able to express my emotions right now. But for some of us, it's not, I don't have the time and the luxury to be able to do so. I hear from so many that I don't have time to think and process my emotions. I'm an emotional volcano. And for some that gets them very, very, that alone gets them stressed and worried. We are a people who search for directions, and we want to do it right. We want to know that we're doing this coronavirus right. So let's take a peek back to Pesach and Yetzias Mitzrayim. When Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim, how did he take us out? It was b'chip hazon. It was very, very quickly, in a rush. He took us out of 210 years of slavery, of trauma, of torture, of such catastrophic trauma. And you would think that, he would have given us time to sit and process what we've been through before he took us, to Geula, to slavery. We're in lockdown. We don't know what, the next, rule is going to be, what the next trauma is going to be, what the next illness or death is going to be. When are we going to have time to sit and think and process? But no, Hashem took us out quickly and took us straight to Kriyas Yamsuf. Just go, he said to us. Just follow me. Just go through the water. He didn't even want us to daven, to call out to him, to cry to him. Just go. Don't stop and think and process. Just follow me through the water. Sometimes he doesn't, B'dafka, give us time to sit and process, but just follow me. Trust me. Trust me. Hold on to me and follow me. And after Kriyas Yamsuf, where did he take us? He took us to Midbar Sinai for 40 years. Midbar, from the Lashon of Midaber. Don't worry, I will give you time to think. I will give you time to process. I will give you time to just talk to me, just to connect to me, just to communicate to me. Hashem knows what we need. Hashem knows what we need and when we need it. We just have to hold on to him and trust his love and compassion for us. We are going through it, and yet there is that niggling piece of us that we want to grow through it. Can I do it? Can I be mindful of my needs, both spiritually and emotionally in these times? Can it happen? Let's assume that sometimes we are walking on the street and we see a stone in front of us. This stone can either be something that you and I would trip on or that we step on, but we want to grow from it. We think sometimes that we're actually failures. Are we doing it right? Again, I hear people say, I myself say, am I doing this coronavirus right? Is this me? Do I recognize myself during these times? When we do an action, it affects our thoughts and our feelings, and vice versa. And perhaps we can create a toolbox that we can carry with us through the rest of this coronavirus. There is a Holocaust historian, Terence Dupre, that found that Auschwitz survivors, female Auschwitz survivors, that found a way to focus even a tiny bit on their physical care while in the camps had a higher rate of resilience and survival. Even that tiniest bit, even the days that, I know myself, even the days that I put on makeup and feel, more dressed in the house rather than just, walking around in a robe, I definitely feel like stronger and more empowered and more like ready to focus the day, and I'm not just talking about makeup, any bit of self-care. I know there are like Zoom exercise classes or whatever you feel you need, whether it's a sheer or something inspiring or getting out and taking a walk, but any way that you can focus on yourself, any way you can empower yourself, any way that you can strengthen yourself during this time. It's not a selfish thing. It's just feeling, that you're focusing on yourself is a way to feel empowered and strengthened during this time. Ha'emanti ki adaber. As mothers, we are trying to give over to our children the emunah. Hashem loves us. This is from Him, even though, I understand that I don't understand. How about taking that into an action? How about taking a book, a sefer, and, learning it with our kids every night? Something like Chavos HaLevavos or Living Emunah. Taking those thoughts and those feelings, and instead of just, saying the words, let's, not just talk the talk, but walk the walk. And it's something that our children will remember doing with their mother, with their parents, every night. And then afterwards, maybe take out a joke book and tell a couple jokes and laugh with the kids, laugh with the family, and be able to have those memories too. Definitely to take the time to express the gratitude. Thank Hashem. In our family, we have every Shabbos, we should be doing it every night, but we have those moments of, the thank you Hashem, the moments. Maybe every kid should have a notebook and start a gratitude journal, especially during those times, instead of, just remembering the difficult times, but those, thank you Hashem moments. There was a beautiful thought from the Belzer Rav who said, Dor lador lecha nesaper tehilasecha. So it doesn't say anywhere that we ask for erlecha children, but we ask Hashem that all my doros will be able to sing Hashem's praise. We don't ask for Talmidei Chachamim, but we ask for children who will be able to be positive and to talk positive. And this is a technique that we should really think about to help ourselves and to help our children. And that, yes, we may be, in a time where we're hurting and we're alone, but to be able to express gratitude, to be able to, teach our children to use this time to express gratitude is not only just a nice thought, and it's not only just a thank you Hashem, but psychologically it actually helps to rewire our brains, that become a casualty to pain. Hope and optimism and positive thinking is another remedy for some of the damaged circuitry in our brain that is exposed to loss and trauma, which is something, very interesting and important to think about. Hope is a kochos hanefesh. Okay, hope is one of our kochos hanefesh. And actually, Yaakov Avinu, in his bracha to Shevet Dan, said to him, Lishuascha kivisi Hashem. Liyishuascha kivisi Hashem. And there's a midrash that says on that hakol b'kivoi. Everything depends on hope, on a hopeful attitude. And we get through Yisurim by being mikaveh. Okay, we get through difficulties by being hopeful. And by being hopeful, we get to Yeshua and Geula. And we are memala ourselves by having this attitude of hopeful. And really, if you think about it, an attitude of hopefulness is really one that gets you into a perspective of future by having a hopeful vision. Okay, how are we going to get through this? How are we going to get through this challenge? Because you don't remain in a neurocognitive state. It helps facilitate an emotional state. If we are thinking hope, then we feel hope. And if we feel hope, then we calm down. It calms our breathing and it calms our heart rate. And it almost, it creates an internal glow. It helps our state of mind and it helps our state of heart. And it helps our state of spirituality. And, we may not right now see the light at the end of the tunnel, but we can hope for the light at the end of the tunnel. And we know that light at the end of the tunnel is Geula. But how? How can this happen? What can give us the strength to be able to, change our view to one of hope, to imbue ourselves with this emotion of hope? So there's a beautiful mashal from the Nesiva Shalom of a small little country that, there was a sudden upheaval in that turned into a mini civil war. And everyone took sides and the country was literally turned upside down. No one knew what will be from one day to the next. And there was a small little group in this country that stayed totally committed. They stuck to their beliefs and they hold on to their trust that they had in the earlier days. They stuck to their belief in the ultimate goal of restoring rest to their country that once was. And when it was all over and peace was restored, the king awarded this small group of people for holding steadfast in their belief to their country. And he asked them, how did you do it? How were you able to hold on to your belief? And the response was that they were focused on their goal. They had this goal, they held on, and they just, held on tight. When we recognize that there is a goal, when we recognize that there is a plan, then we're able to hold on tight. We're able to hold on to that goal. Liyishuascha kivisi Hashem. Kave el Hashem, v'kave el Hashem. Kave is also known as a rope. When we can hold on to that rope and hold on to that goal, then we literally have something to hold on to. When we recognize that somebody has a plan. The Chafetz Chaim, when he felt spiritually weak, what does that mean? We don't really know. The Heilige, Holy Chafetz Chaim, when he felt spiritually weak, what did he do? He went back and he learned the first few psukim in Bereshis, just a pashup shot. Bereshis bara Elokim es hashamayim v'es haaretz. Hashem's story of when he created the world. Why? To remind himself that there is a creator to the world, that there is a plan, that there is a rope, that there is something to hold on to. We need to remember that there is a creator of the world, that he has a plan, that there is something to hold on to. And the creator of the world is our Father. And everything that is being done with love and compassion. And that is our rope. And that is the rope that we are holding on to. Bereshis bara Elokim es hashamayim v'es haaretz. Yesh borei olam. There is a creator. He has a plan. And that is our rope. And that will give us, that is part of what gives us our kochos hanefesh. And combined with that, our kochos and our strengths and our goals. And we have to believe in our strengths and believe in ourselves and recognize and be mindful of our strengths, our goals, our actions, our thoughts, and our emotions. So be hopeful and be positive, and to continue holding on to that rope. I pray that some of what we said here tonight was helpful to you. As always, our department is available to you 24 hours, 6 days a week at 855-3-CRISIS, 855-3-CRISIS, or crisis@lifeline.org. And we will do anything to help you to hold on to that rope until the time that we will all be together, hopefully very soon in Yerushalayim. And thank you for listening.